In 2023, a crack commando unit of retro podcasters joined forces on a panel at LA Comic-Con, but were sent to Comic-Con jail for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped. Today, still wanted by 80s nerds, they are very easy to find. If you have an 80s nostalgia problem, if no one else can help, maybe you can hire the Night Boys.
Alrighty, so I'm taking us up. Oh, good Lord. I'm just imagining like Bodhi waking up and like, you know, Zach just like holding these figures
in his
face.
He's not saying anything.
Yeah. Am I dead?
Look
No.
at it. Yeah. You'll like it and you will love it.
Yeah.
You're not you, you're me.
Alrighty.
I mean, he was gonna join us for this episode, and but he's like, no, I'm not an '80s kid though. I'm like, okay, fair.
You come from an 80s kid's loins, though.
Loins.
I appreciate that he was the one that told you. It's not like he wants to do it, and you're like, you're not an '80s kid. You're not an '80s kid.
He will eventually.
You're like, he'll eventually become an '80s kid. I don't think so, buddy. That's not how it works. It's not how science works. Okay. Alrighty, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the nostalgia-fueled mustache ride that is 80s Kids Unite. This is the podcast where a bunch of us 80s kids get together and talk about all the things that you may have forgotten about, we may have forgotten about. We revisit them.
Super uncomfortable, Zach.
Where Zach puts the loins and the groins of his favorite characters right up into the camera. You guys can't see it at home, but I'm sure you can smell it or imagine what it's like. It's very disturbing. But anyway, every week we do a deep dive into these topics from our childhood. Brought to us directly from our patrons, from our various Patreon feeds. This is a combination of ultimately, like 4 different shows coming together. We've got $2 late fee. We've got Podcasting After Dark, TV Obscura, and Territory Marks joining. You know, every one of those podcast mentions takes you on a journey back. And whether you were brought here from any one of those or all of those, we welcome you. We thank you for listening. And we hope that this episode brings you a little bit of nostalgic joy, as I'm sure it will for us. Or we'll just talk about Zach's trauma, because that's typically what we do. And then we get into it. So, I'm Dustin. With me today, I've got Zach, who's in every single podcast you've ever listened to that's retro. I've got Corey and Diallo, and the 4 of us are going to sort of hash out today's topic, which is the DC Superpowers toy line from Kenner. Was it originally from Kenner, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, sure it was.
Mm-hmm. Originally from Kenner. And as and this topic was suggested by our number 1 patron, David Ullman. David, thank you. As always, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and only you. Everyone else, I hope you have an okay Thanksgiving.
But not as good as David.
Not as good as David. David, this is a weird thing where we created it. David Ullman's Thanksgiving is going to be the best Thanksgiving. But as the odd man out here, this topic came into the 80s kid mainstream phone line, the hotline, and I was like, I really didn't have these characters. I'm obviously familiar with the DC Super, the Super Friends, the line of heroes. But I'm like, I'm just a little unfamiliar. Now, these 3 gentlemen with me today all have specific stories, memories, adventures. Zach you can't see this. Zach has shown like 95 different toy lines every comic book that he owns. She's just waving them by the camera.
This is like the happiest Zach's ever been.
Yeah,
ever.
it's like
he's never been.
There's a
quiet,
smile
too.
on his face, and he hasn't said a word, which is it's like eerie. It's very strange. I guess he wants us to name them or something. I don't know. But also like McDonald's toy. You're just throwing up every toy
Mac
that you
the
own
Knife.
is just laid out on this desk in front of you. Apparently.
Well, we used to have a show on $2 Late Fees Patreon called Why Does Zach Own This? And this is like, here's the culmination of why does Zach own all this random stuff.
Well, that's exciting. So everybody, so anyone who knows anything about that show, it's basically me being like, Zach, why do you own this? Why the hell do you own this? Now, today we can sort of understand why you might own these things, but it does seem like literally thousands of toys are being passed in front of the camera. Is every toy you own on the desk? I guess is the first question.
No. This is just a box, a box that traveled with me for decades, though. A collection of toys that are near and dear to my heart that I've since passed down to my son, Bodie.
Zach, I have noticed that there is a theme. You might not have noticed, but every single toy that you've held up, the paint has been removed from their noses. Every single one of them.
Except for Martian Manhunter. And there's a reason for that because I've actually talked about the Superpower line on a either $2 late fee or Podcasting After Dark or both.
Not on $2 late fee.
I did because I said I used them as my wrestlers.
I remember every episode in photographic memory. No, I have no idea.
You know what? It might have been.
Idea.
It might have been
sure
Territory Marks. Might have been Territory Marks. My love of wrestling and my lack of love of the wrestling figures. And I used the Superpower figures for my wrestlers. So I will put tape on their wrists and, they would beat each other up. And exactly. No, that was saved for my brother. And I think the reason why they've all lost the paint on their noses is because they were battling all the time.
Of course.
Well, thank you for bringing all of it. It is like being every episode of this show is like being at show and tell.
It is. I was thinking the same thing.
It really is because it's like a show and tell that we wish we had. Because really, sometimes kids would bring in things like, oh, it's science or like, who cares, right? But if every show and tell was just like, I'm bringing in my favorite toy, then we would have enough show and tells to power a city or something like that. Before we get into this, guys, I think we do need to clear the air on something that happened offline, just so we're all cool, just so everyone's cool. Now, Diallo had texted one of the most amazing toy commercials of this particular line that we're going to talk about today, and we were all like, "Wow, it really was! It really was like a time machine. It really just took me back. I was like, I absolutely remember this. I remembered this, but like right before the commercial started, it was like the last like 3 seconds of this this chocolate milk situation commercial as well. But it's like when a memory gets activated, and I think all of us on this text thread were like, wow. And then about I don't know, I guess not a full day had gone by, but some hours had gone by, and Zach was like, check out this commercial. This is awesome.
I sent 2 of them, by the way.
Okay. He sent 2, but one of them was the one that Diallo had sent. And it caused a little bit of a rift, like in the space-time continuum because there was some confusion where Zach was like, I didn't send, what do you mean? I can't find it. And Diallo was like, I just sent it. We were all like, wow. Yeah. So I just wanted to, if you guys had anything you wanted to say about that now before we get in, I don't want this to hang over us. I don't want there to be any weird, subtext or hurt feelings, because Diallo said he felt a little invisible, and I just don't want you to feel that way.
No, I mean, I struggle with that anyway, so it just was like confirmation that it's like when I say something, it's like no one notices, but then the person next to me will say the same thing, and it's like, that was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. And it's like, oh, okay. I'm struggling with that. So when I find a new therapist, I'll talk about it and dissect that.
Unpack it.
Yeah, just kind of see how it feels.
Do you not have a therapist now because your therapist was also ignoring you? Like you felt like
Yes.
You'd bring this, you show the commercial to your therapist, and they would be like, I don't care about that.
I mean,
and then Zach came in and showed the commercial to your therapist and was like, this is amazing.
They definitely didn't listen to me. Put it that way.
Well,
now
no,
Diallo did clarify something for me today, which was the Alien toy commercial. I had seen before online, like on Instagram or something, but I thought it was like, I don't know. I thought like it was like a new commercial, but then they shot it retroly or something, because my mind couldn't grasp that like they would actually have an alien toy. I guess I could understand that they would have an alien toy from the movie Alien, but the fact that they literally market it to like 10-year-olds, like, so I guess it was not always an 80s thing where you take a rated R movie, a hard R, and market it towards kids.
Yeah, I mean, that was the tail, because that was like 79 when
Yeah.
that commercial was, and that's right around that time. But yeah, it was like the tail end. That's when I personally remember that starting, was then.
Okay.
Because like I think because like, for everyone listening, I was like, I've been working the last couple of days, and I have like this whole setup where I'm looking at computer, like I have a screen and I have YouTube playing, and I just kind of stumbled across like these videos of like cartoons, and so I was like, oh, I'll have this running in the background while I'm working, and whatever. And then they started showing these old commercials, and then I was like taking videos of them and sending them to these guys, and then except for Zach, and then so but yeah, they had that one, they had the Alien one, and then that reminded me that they had like Jaws, because I remember playing that as a kid, and Alligator from the 1980 movie.
Yeah, that blew my mind with Robert Forster. We covered that on Podcasting After Dark, and literally in that movie, like a 6 or 7-year-old boy gets shoved into the pool and screaming because he can see the alligator in it, and he gets eaten whole, and yet they still market a toy towards kids.
Yeah. And it's strange, because those movies were definitely a part of like pop culture, but
Yeah.
we couldn't, like, I never saw any of them. Well, I maybe saw Jaws, like, because they showed it on TV, but I didn't see. I don't think I've ever seen Alligator, and
It's good. You should. It's
yeah,
really
and
fun.
And
It's
then,
good.
Yeah, and then Alien, I didn't see till I was like teenager, after like right around when Aliens came out. But then but it was just like we all knew what it was, and people had the figures, and I don't know. It was just life.
Just life.
Coming from the farthest reaches of the universe to challenge the worst villains on Earth are the most powerful heroes ever in the battle of the Superpowers Collection. Impossible. The Hall of Justice under attack. Batman behind bars. New from Kenner's Superpowers Collection. Hall of Justice playset. Some assembly required. Vehicles and figures sold separately.
Use the trap door, Batman!
Brainiac's taken over the computer. Joker in the elevator. Evil forces joining for a final assault. Who can restore order?
Superman!
Can Superman save the Hall of Justice? You decide.
Darkseid, future ruler of the universe, presents Steppenwolf, commander of my Apocalypse Army, the most awesome action figure with the most ferocious power action. Yours free, with 5 proofs of purchase from any of Kenner's Superpowers action figures. To tempt you more, you'll get a record that tells about my fight against those despicable Superpowers heroes. I'm ending this offer June 1st. He's not yet available in any store, so send for Steppenwolf now.
Well, I bring those commercials not to sow the discord of the waters of the 80s Kids Unite, but rather that we started this as a live panel, and when we were doing it as a live panel, we would show commercials to the audience and then kind of have that feeling wash over everybody and then kind of dive into it. So I do feel like both of these commercials are just amazing examples of that time period, and anybody in the audience can kind of hear them, or if we do the video, you can see them, and immediately get taken back there. It is that instant thing of like what kind of fuels all of our podcasts, on an individual level. It's this feeling of nostalgia, and those memories of like, oh wow, I remember watching this, wanting this. So both commercials, even though we got one commercial twice from both of you in a span of less than 10 hours, the second commercial too, they really are that you're like, wow, like, do you guys remember, those running all the time, because I certainly do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I remember the hell out of that commercial. The first time I watched it, the Diallo one, and the second one that Zach sent. I remember both of those.
Well, I would say, too, that I remember them so well that I saved my UPC points or whatever they were on the back of the packaging to send away for that Steppenwolf figure. Because there was a mail away. They did mail away figures back in the day.
Yeah,
and
that's how I got my Emperor
them.
figure in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the Emperor figure. I think one of the characters, he's armless now, but because he's definitely seen a better day.
That's how I got my Duke character, Duke, and Cobra Commander.
The hooded Cobra Commander?
No, it was the silver one. Because I don't think that came out in that first line, that first wave. And then
that was
also,
a mail-in one.
Also, Boba Fett, which is it's a pretty common one for people. But
yeah, that's probably the most famous mail away figure out there.
Yeah,
that's
Boba Fett.
Oh, interesting.
Boba Fett. Where?
That's how I lost my virginity. Mail order bride. They were
Mail
having a
order
special.
Boba Fett.
I had to send in a lot of UPCs.
Many
I think
things
it was
could be true.
like 6. But then I wasn't really old enough to stay married or whatever. But yeah. Cool. I think I cut somebody off here. Right?
No. I was gonna say more about the love of mailing in things and getting that figure, but yours takes the cake.
You guys didn't do that? Oh, weird. Must be a New Jersey thing. I think.
Yeah, must be an East Coast thing.
Get on that turnpike, baby.
Well, you get on that turnpike and you get.
I will say though, like the Superpower toy line. I know Corey's going to go into it in a minute, but Superpower toy line came out at the same time or around the same time as the Marvel Secret Wars toy line.
Exactly.
And so I have those as well. They're in a different box because I kind of try to keep my DC and Marvel characters separate. But that was, for me, that was like the winter of '84 when I moved to California, getting those as a Christmas gift. And at the time also Hanukkah, because we were celebrating both. And so many of those Marvel and Secret.
Corey's face.
This is like
my mom.
This is like my mom was. This is like when you're watching a show and like somebody retcons their their past. This is
my mom was married to a Jewish guy at the time.
Oh, okay. Wait, you had another stepdad? How many stepdads did you have?
Technically 3.
My 3 stepdads.
Wow.
One was annulled, and then there were 2 after that.
Okay. Wow.
So,
how long have we known each other for? And this is the first time I've ever learned.
Oh, really? I never brought that up.
My Jewish stepdad.
My Jewish stepdad.
In '84, 40 years ago.
It's on TLC.
That's the sitcom, My Jewish Stepdad.
So, should we get into that a little more? So your parents.
We have a lot to unpack.
I mean, I know there are a lot of dads, but like how many and how
what do they do? Who's your daddy? What does he do?
What is your daddy? But like how many years are we talking about? What kind of span?
How long were you
Oh
Jewish?
gosh.
Yeah.
For about a year and a half, maybe.
That's a long time to be Jewish.
Yeah.
Did you like Hanukkah better than because it was 8 crazy nights?
Look, I got presents every single night, and then I got more presents on Christmas Day. So yeah, I liked Hanukkah and Christmas. I love being Jewish and Christian. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So, yeah. No, my mom was. My parents got divorced when I don't know, was 3 or 4 years old, maybe, and then she dated a piano tuner guy, the Dan the piano man.
Right. The who introduced you to Bob Seger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They got engaged, and then they got married, and then they got annulled. I think they got it annulled like a month after.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then she started seeing my stepdad Gary at the time, who was living in Michigan. He's the one that got a job out here in California and moved us out here.
And he's Jewish?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
My mom converted. My mom took all the classes and everything, and
wow, okay.
just like George Costanza did. So,
okay.
So to this day, she's like, "No, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. Yes." So yeah, then they got divorced about a year or so after we moved out here. Next door neighbor was my stepdad Mike, and the rest is history.
Wait, your stepdad Mike was your next door neighbor?
Yeah.
So they met while she was dating the Jew.
Well, she was unpacking. I don't think they ever met.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. And he offered to help her move. He's like, hey, can I help you move? And she's like, sure, be back here tomorrow at 5. That's when I'm going to be loading up the truck. And he didn't show up. And so basically he showed up like the next day and she's like, it's too late. I already, I don't need your help. And he's like, well, how about I take you out to dinner or something like that, make it up to you.
It sounds like an 80s sitcom, actually, this whole story.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely
movie.
Elements.
Yeah.
Yep. There's elements.
Directed by Scorsese.
Interesting.
If you want to know more about all that, sign up to either $2 Late Fees Patreon at patreon.com/$2 Late Fee or patreon.com/podcastingafterdark for more details
Are we
on
launching
my
a new
childhood.
segment called My Three Stepdads? 'Cause
Sure, if you want.
that could be interesting. But, okay, so your mom still celebrates Hanukkah? Just want to get this, I don't know.
No, definitely not.
Oh, so she's not. All right.
Wow.
Nah.
You're like,
She doesn't go
no,
to temple.
absolutely not.
You said that with a lot of disgust. But,
because it's so selective. It's like,
right.
A holiday comes up and suddenly she's celebrating. I'm like, Mom, you don't go to service. You don't go to you don't do Shabbat on Friday. Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
She means-
I
she's
know,
like,
I
you
know the
mean
prayers
Shabbat?
better than she does.
Shabbat?
Yeah. No, I don't bowl on Shabbos. No, Mom, that's a movie. That's a movie. You're not living in a movie. No, I'm the dude. You're not the dude, Mom. You're not the dude.
Amazing. All right. And okay,
Where's
so
your toys? I have photos of my toys when I was. Anyways, we'll get into that. Yeah.
All right. Well, the only other question I guess I have is, and which stepdad threw out your toys?
Mike,
the one that didn't show up to move. Mm.
Yeah. Because we moved 7 times. We moved 7 times over the span of
I didn't know
from
that either. 7 times.
86 to 94. No, 86 to 91. We moved 7 times.
Wow. I know you guys tuned in to hear about DC superpowers, but listen,
This is
it's
far
really,
more interesting.
This
I
is
know,
way
Mike.
more interesting.
I'm like, no, I feel I'm letting go of my grudge against Zach after hearing all
Yeah,
this.
right? So much moving and trauma and
No
groundlessness.
wonder he's so
And
eager to please, and he didn't. He just was like, I saw the video, even though he didn't.
Yeah,
because he was just trying to make me feel included.
Right.
Seen. I was
Yeah,
trying
he
to
was
make
trying
you
to make
feel
me feel
Diallo.
seen, and I definitely acknowledge that. Based on the uncertainty
Yep,
that
there's
you
the-
probably
there's the Green
experienced,
Lantern.
that was like a
narrate.
survival mechanism for you. And
That was absolutely a survival mechanism. I think we can all be. I mean, there's a psychiatrist out there that has enough information that can diagnose Zach at this point and break it all down. And I think we can do it. I mean, we've already done it multiple times within our own friend group.
You have.
I mean, if anyone wants to know,
It
my
is.
parents got a divorce when I was 4, but I'm fine. I turned out fine.
he's like,
I turned out fine too.
I'm fine.
Last question: Do you have like any step siblings that we don't know about or that you don't know about? Do you think that?
No, I just have my half brother Sean.
Okay.
That's
Sean. I haven't seen Sean
Yeah.
in forever.
Same.
Oh.
And we'd like to keep it that way. So, Sean, if you're listening,
If you're listening, stay away.
Stay away, get away. This is the one episode he actually
amazing.
tunes into. I like DC superpowers.
Oh,
DC, yeah.
I love DC superheroes.
My favorite.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That's so funny. All right. Well, I feel good about where we're at. Maybe, maybe we can start the processing for Zach's trauma a little bit. We'll just start it. We'll press that button here. But Corey, you want to give us some background on this toy line and what?
Sure.
And what
Why not? Why not, guys?
Not anymore.
yeah.
All right. I kind of took this from the wiki and added my own words to it and moved things around. But here we go. You like to hear about it? Here we go. 1984, DC Comics awarded the master toy license of their characters to Kenner. The team at Kenner devised hidden mechanisms within the figures that would trigger an action when their legs or arms were squeezed. This emphasis on each character's superpower led to the naming of the line the Superpowers Collection. Each toy in the first 2 series were packaged with a mini-comic featuring that character. They also included a cutout collector's card on the back of each package. With the Apocalyptian New Gods characters like Darkseid selected as antagonists for the line, comic creator Jack Kirby received some of the only royalties of his long career for redesigning his characters for Kenner. Artist George Perez also received royalties for his design of Cyborg and redesign of Lex Luthor. Most of the other designs, such as the packaging artwork, were based on Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's classic DC style guides. In all, 3 series of figures and accessories were released from 1984 to 1986 before the line was abruptly canceled in February 1986. 2 toys pictured on the back of the third wave packages were never produced, the all-terrain Trapper vehicle and the Darkseid Tower of Darkness playset. McFarlane Toys acquired the license in 2020 and has been releasing new versions of the DC Superpowers toys since 2022. And I believe you can get them online or at Walmart. I don't think they're like a Walmart exclusive, but you can kind of basically find them at Walmart. So yeah, there you go. It's a little backstory on that.
And the rumor is that the Darkseid playset is going to be coming out.
I saw that. Yeah, I've seen pictures of it.
And if you start playing and you sync it up to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, you'll stop playing. That's really interesting. We are in the 40-year anniversary of this toy line, and that's not even by design. So congrats
really
to
cool.
all of you guys, because that's really wild. And, you mentioned that that everything had sort of an action, and hence you see a lot of every figure being marketed as the power action, insert the blank.
Yeah, and I think that's what's cool about the line is not every figure had the same action. So Zach's like squeezing the legs of Green Arrow and his arms move. He has like a bow shooting action. And then the Flash, he squeezes arms and his legs run. So you got to imagine that the tooling on these had to have been pretty extensive, because they're not just like, you think about it, a G.I. Joe has the same features, like every single one of them do, unless you have some sort of specialty one.
Right.
But like they all have the same features, so you can kind of just keep the same tooling. But for these, as Batman is fisting Green Arrow in the back.
You have failed the city.
But like those are 2 separate different toolings right there. So
Yeah.
I imagine that this was not a cheap line to produce.
They were really well made. I mean, like I said, I had almost the entire first wave, quite a few from the second wave. I had some of the ships. I had Lex Luthor's ship. Like I said, also the Marvel Secret Wars figures came out the same year, so they were competing against each other who was cooler. I preferred those because they didn't have like the action. I kind of liked just the posability versus the action in the figures. But man, they were really well made. I mean, down to like little details. There's this one character I'm holding up right now. You guys can help me out with his name.
The Parademon.
Yeah, Parademon. He looks like a green mantis, but his little arms move as well. Like the little claws that he has actually have a separate way of moving, and I don't know, that's really cool. Like little details like that. Or you could take the wings off of Hawkman if you wanted to like de-wing him, or, all the accessories that came with them at the time, probably one of the most detailed figure lines to come out.
Yeah, and I feel like nowadays, like that Parademon is technically like a little bit bigger, and I remember Darkseid being a little bit bigger. Like I feel like they would charge you more for those now. They would be the deluxe action figures or something like that, and cost like, extra. But back then it was just, they were all the same price, and you got what you got, and they were pretty damn amazing, including a comic book.
I feel like they made them to scale, because you look at like, Flash and Hawkman. Flash is like, almost an inch shorter than Hawkman. That's unheard of nowadays. Nowadays they just make them all 6 inches or all 4 inches or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's what she said.
That's what he wishes.
4 inches. 4 inches.
That's average, isn't it? That's average, right?
You make them all 4 inches.
Right. Those figures were, I don't want revolutionary in a way. Like, like up until, I mean, this whole line is like, it's like for like I guess the age I was at, it was a shift from like the way things used to be to like not just with the line, but just like the way the comics were represented at that time. It was just like a whole new different like vibe. Because like Mego was what was ruled before that with like the 8-inch, was
Right.
it 8-inch dolls?
Yes.
Yeah, and so even like the Star Wars figures and GI Joe figures, but then the superpowers ones, just I don't know, they were like a lot more lively and a lot more sculpted, and so they definitely I actually can't I never could stand the Marvel the Secret Wars ones. I just thought that they were stiff. The way their legs were like bow leg, and I always like, as I'm older, I'm pretty sure what happened was they knew that superpowers thing was coming, and they like jumped on it and like pushed something out, because they both came. I actually feel like superpowers. Secret Wars might have come out before, like it might have hit the market before, but I think it was an afterthought. And both of those, I think, were based on, at least Superpowers, the Secret Wars was based on like a comic book that they were trying to, market to people. But anyway, but it definitely was it was like a new wave of just like doing things. And, all the way up until the 90s, it was like the mode until we got into our Extreme era. So
yeah, and Diallo, to your point, like the Marvel ones you can only just move their arms and their legs, whereas the DC ones you can move their elbows and their knees, and then like all that was special packaged were kind of like those shields,
that
like
had holograms,
lenticular shield things, and like even like Wolverine, like his claws, you had to like, it was a separate plastic piece that you had to put on his fist. Whereas I feel like if Kenner produced those, they would have actually made the claws come out of Wolverine's hands. There was a quality to the DC Superpowers toys. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved the Secret Wars, the Marvel ones. I loved them because I was kind of more of a Marvel kid growing up. But even back then, I noted the quality was definitely there with the Superpower toys.
Well, and then Toy Wiz, so Kenner had the toy line for a little bit, but then Toy Wiz took over and then like released they didn't have the action to them. Like I'm holding up a Riddler figure who's very basic. I mean, he's cool looking, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't have like any sort of action.
No power action?
No power action. That was Toy Wiz. And Toy Wiz ended up getting like the DC and Marvel line because eventually they would release the Wolverine with the extendable claws or whatever.
Yeah, that actually went into his arm and everything.
Yeah, but Kenner was on fire. Like this was the beginning of Kenner doing, I think Mask was coming out pretty soon after this, and they would have the little catalog that would come in the toys of like, what's coming soon.
The movie starring Eric Stoltz, for anybody who's confused.
Yes. Yeah, Rocky Dolan.
Rocky Dennis.
Dennis, yeah, not Rocky.
Dolans.
Yeah, no relation to the monkeys. Mickey Dolenz and Rocky Dennis had a love child.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the Mask figures. Yeah, they had a Sam Elliott one. It said Mustache Rise for $5.
Well, so I'm sure that like the answer. I'm sure I'm saying what the answer is, but did they have? Kenner had more money and more power because of the Star Wars license, right? That propelled them forward in the early 80s, and they used that money to invest back into like these superpowers toys and everything.
Must have been, but then didn't that company go out of business or get absorbed by Hasbro?
Yeah.
Who did the
last forever?
Who did the Secret Wars toys?
Good question.
Yeah, keep talking. I'll look it up.
Is it Galoob or something? LJN?
I think LJN might have, but
most things we talk about are LJN. Guys, listen to our favorite retro video game episode where every
it was Mattel.
video game.
Mattel. Yeah,
it was Mattel.
Mattel.
Oh, yeah, because Mattel has released a line of Secret Wars inspired figures now. So, like, new versions of them are coming out. But anyways, I know that you guys mentioned the Superpowers cartoon, and then there was a 16-episode series that Legendary Superpowers show, which was based on this toy line. Like, it introduced Samurai. Well, Samurai was in the original.
Samurai was already on,
But they had Firestorm, who was like pretty cocky, and then obviously introduced Darkseid and Calabac, who was his nephew or something, right? Wasn't that part of the storyline?
Calabac.
Anyways,
yeah, he's his son or nephew.
Son or
yeah,
yeah, like that cartoon was short-lived, but I remember I got excited for it. Anything that would have a cartoon around the toy, I got excited for. And these toys are great. I mean, like I said, I used them for all sorts of other things, and you know. You could you could pop.
You have to elaborate that on.
Yeah,
You can't just leave that hanging, buddy. What did you?
Well, no, like I used them for.
them.
I used them for my wrestling figures because the playability was better. So I renamed some of the characters, and they became the wrestling figures that I always wanted. But you could also pop their arms off too. You could like interchange as well.
Don't do it, Zach. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not gonna do it now because they'll break because the plastic's so brittle. I actually broke one while I was talking, then it popped back on. It's like, oh, thank God it's not broken. But yeah, no, they were lots of fun. I love the Superpower line.
Now, Dustin, I mean, because one of the things that David Allman wants us to do is like pick our favorite. So the three of us have it, and you chose.
And I
to
follow
MC
everything David Allman does. David Allman's wish is my command. David, that's what we do. That's the service we offer on Patreon, guys. It's pretty much you join our Patreon. You just tell us what to do. We'll just do it. But I cut you off. Please continue with your question.
Well, no. So did you have? So I'm assuming you didn't have any of these, but you were obviously aware of their existence. I mean, did you read comics much when you were a kid?
Yes. So I was a Marvel comic reader primarily. I did not
Me
like.
too.
I did not. I just didn't. I didn't resonate with the DC line so much, and I think that sort of fed into it. But all that to say, I didn't have the other. I didn't have the Marvel line of toys either. So, but I feel like it wasn't a kind of like your responsibility as an 80s kid to like everyone had to have an Incredible Hulk. I feel like, right? We just all had one. I don't know why. Like you're just like, yeah, I got an Incredible Hulk. So I feel like he had an appearance, but no, I this line I was aware of. Obviously, the commercials resonated, but I did not. Didn't have them. The Flash to me is the one that stands out the most. I think. I don't know if he was. I mean, he was extremely popular in my little circle of friends. You'd always see the Flash and the fast leg action. Something about that. So
he's got like a cool. He's got all the accessories. He's got the Mercury or the wings on his ears, and the little lightning bolt.
Yeah,
on his
it's a great figure. So I think my brother had that one, and I just didn't. He's just got the groin right in the camera. It's just right in the booty,
his
the indention.
Booty.
It's very distracting.
They paid a lot of attention to the details.
I mean, he's a runner, so
they did. Right, his glutes are defined.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, I did not own any of these, so it wouldn't be fair for me to say, oh, this is my favorite.
Did your brother have them? Did Lance have them?
Well, I think he had the Flash.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But same thing with him. It's like we were not really reading DC and hanging out in that DC world. And I think a lot of that too. I don't know if you guys have ever talked about this, but I think like Marvel to me is just more fun from a personality perspective, because when you look at a lot of the DC characters, even today, the reason they couldn't get the movies right for so long is like the comic relief was always just so bad. Like it would always just be like, oh, here's the Flash going to say some funny lines. Whereas like,
I disagree.
You think that Marvel is less funny than DC?
I don't know if it's about being funny or not. I just feel like, yeah, I mean, it's just like a whole different discussion.
Well, yeah, and we certainly won't devote that much time to it, but just from the perspective of, like Spider-Man was like the, kind of the wisecracking cool guy. Like I never resonated with any of that in DC. I didn't see, Superman is he's kind of boring, Batman is broken and intense, and the line goes very, very far. But is there any character, just talking off the top here of the top of the dome, are there any of these characters in the toy line that are kind of like the sarcastic, wisecracking character?
I don't know about in the line. I mean, there were characters around that time, maybe like a few years later, that really got a lot more popular. But I mean, I don't know if they ever were like pop culture popular, but like the especially it's like in '87, I think it was, when Justice League came out. That was known for being like comical, but actually really good. And there's a couple iconic moments like Guy Gardner, Green Lantern.
I'm glad you brought up Guy Gardner. I feel like he's got the most personality in the DC universe.
Yeah, like Booster Gold,
Guy Gardner,
and Blue Beetle. It was like actually really funny like book. Batman punched Guy Gardner out like one punch. That was like a big deal. Like it was actually but I can see how like it was like comic book famous, but I can see like it wasn't pop culture famous, so I can see that.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. The closest thing I can think of for me personally is the Teen Titans, and not to digress, but Beast Boy, and just like characters sort of in that world, because they are younger, and you're still getting that kind of making their way in the world today.
Even
then,
that was like deadly serious when it first came out. That was not comedic at all. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
No, and what that is today is so different than what it was.
Yeah.
But I think, Dustin, to the point you're making is like, we all know that like Wolverine says bub, and that he's like a firecracker, and you don't want to mess with him. Like I feel like his personality is as important as his claws and his costume and everything like that. We all know Spider-Man's a kid, and he cracks wise because he's actually scared, and that's like kind of relatable and everything. And similar to you, Dustin, I actually was not a big DC fan growing up as a kid. I was much more of a Marvel kid and everything. But as I've gotten older, I've actually gravitated more towards DC characters because of how like iconic they are. And as a kid, I wanted someone that was sort of representing me, like Spider-Man or something or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I appreciate Superman. I appreciate people that are like characters that are larger than life, and like sort of provide this like this beacon. And I feel like DC does that right, and it's sort of always done that correctly.
I had this whole like when I was doing a blog and writing about that stuff, I actually was like I think what happened was that the world got more cynical, and as that happened, DC's characters were what you said. They were, because they were the ones that were carrying the whole thing for the first, however many 40 years or whatever, 35 years, I think, until Marvel came on the scene. Marvel, like I personally like love both. The distinction that never was made in my head when I was collecting. I knew that they were different companies, and I just was getting comic books. I do think that I kind of like resonate and prefer kind of DC a little bit more on a whole as a universe, but I have way more X-Men comics than anything else,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just feel like the world got more cynical, and the DC characters are more iconic. They're like gods. And I also think that that's why Batman is the most popular one, because he's the one that isn't a god. He's the closest thing to a Marvel character than any of the other ones are. I mean, the Justice League literally is just like the Greek pantheon, so
right.
I think that's what it's like. They're a little less relatable in that way, and it was really, and whenever they try to make them more relatable, that it falls apart. That's why that was the kind of I think the problem with a lot of the DC movies. They couldn't really figure out so that's my interpretation of it. Again, I love both, so I don't have really I've never been like a Marvel fanboy or a DC fan guy. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm getting I have a stack of Spider-Man, and I have like Justice League, and I had like my Superman book, and then I had my X-Men, whatever. I just was getting stuff. So
I wonder too, like where I grew up, everything was like versus something else. One thing had to be better than the other. You couldn't just like both. So, it was like you had to like DC or Marvel, and if you like DC, then you had to justify it where I was going to school, which I think is terrible because like if you like something, that's all that matters. And this toy line, when this toy line came out, it was like it was something that no one else I knew had these toys. Like I was the only one in my area, and so everyone had GI Joes and Transformers. That was it. For some reason, DC and Marvel characters were not very popular with amongst my friends. So for me, it was like I was in my own little bubble.
Yeah. Having a GoBot could get you killed, right?
Well, GoBots never even got brought up.
Yeah.
But I will say Firestorm. I feel like Firestorm in the short-lived Legendary Superpowers cartoon was kind of like their Spider-Man. Like he was like
pushing,
a younger character.
Yeah, they pushed him as like when that season started, they were like, oh, Firestorm, and there's a big push in the comic books. I can't remember if Cyborg was the same season or if it was like he came after in that show.
He was the same in the cartoon, and that was a figure that was apparently that's one of the holy grail superpower figures because it was so hard to find. The Cyborg figure, and he came with interchangeable hands. Very cool looking figure.
I've had a vendetta against Cyborg in the Justice League ever since 1984.
Oh, well, I think he came out in like 85 or 86.
Yeah, it always drives me nuts. Yeah.
But Corey was mentioning how they kind of reimagined some of the iconic villains, like Lex Luthor looks super jacked up, and he came with like a cool armor piece, and then. Of course, what's his name? Brainiac. Yeah. Brainiac was like a big metallic looking, all I remember him from was the Superpowers cartoon or the Super Friends cartoon where he just was like a dude. But then the Superpowers line came out and he was like this cyborg robot. And
he was
very
cool as hell at that toy. I loved that toy as a kid. I never owned it, but I always was like, oh man, I want that. That's really awesome. Because I always gravitated more towards sci-fi stuff. Like, so here's the thing. The only Superpowers toys I had were hand-me-downs, or I had this a secondhand toy store in my neighborhood, so I actually bought them from there. So I actually never had any of the comics that came with them. I never had the packaging. I never owned any of them new because I would gravitate more towards G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Centurions, Mask, like that kind of stuff. But I thought he was super, super cool. But real quick, I was looking at who my pick was, who my pick's going to be. And he has like a cloth cape. So there's also these toys also came with like soft goods, So that, and I'm just knowing what I know now about toy production and stuff. Like I'm just blown away by the quality and play factor that they actually give you with these toys that as a kid didn't mean anything to me, but as an adult I'm like, that's impressive as hell.
Yeah, that actually factors into my pick for my favorite figure too, was the accessories that came with said figure were, in my opinion, leaps and bounds above other like superhero related figures at that time.
And they wouldn't try to be like, we have to give everybody the same amount of accessories. Like if the Flash doesn't come with accessories, it's because the Flash doesn't need them. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a cape because the Flash doesn't have a cape.
He came what his character came with.
Exactly. So it's like, and then they'd all be the same price, but like one character would sort of come with more stuff, That's
right.
That's wild when you think about it, especially nowadays when everything is so like streamlined and like that character, Green Arrow, Zach, would probably be like a deluxe figure now and cost more.
Oh, totally.
Well, that's all the time we have. Guys, thank you so much for listening to another amazing episode. These guys mentioned their picks. You're not going to hear what they are. Actually, so let's jump in, or just walk in, I guess. Diallo, take us back in time.
Yes. So, again, I'm a little older than you guys. So I was this is around that age where I was like, starting to be like a little too old to play with action figures like openly. So it was like on the tail end of like me like actually getting to play with those. So I had a couple of them, but I didn't get as many as I would have liked. So I have 3 favorite superheroes, and I had two of the characters. I had Green Lantern and I had the Flash. And I probably Shazam's my other one, but
I don't have Shazam. He's a holy grail one too.
But
Shazam.
I think I like Green Lantern because he came with the lantern, right? And and so like I like that. But I have like a better story to tell with the Flash. Flash forward a year later, and over in DC they had Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline, and in issue number 8, very iconic, written by the great Marv Wolfman, he killed the Flash. And I was like, not devastated, but I was just, because I still to this day think it's like if you're going to kill a character, that's the way to do it. Like, he went out as a absolute total G, saved the universe. It was done really well. Apparently a lot of people were upset by it. And Marv told me that they killed him because the sales were low, but and that was the reason why. But anyways, I was just like, oh man. So I had this figure, and I was still like, by that time I was like, I was in high school. So I definitely wasn't allowed to play with toys, and it just was kind of sitting around. And so the Flash died, and so I remember I had like a little index card metal box, and I put him in the box, and I went into the backyard, and I buried him in the backyard. So,
you talked about that recently, I think on TV Obscura, maybe.
Man, I don't even remember. I don't know if I've ever told that story. I think there's only. Maybe I did. I know there's one other person I know.
I don't know if it was about the Flash, but you basically said you buried It was the Phoenix episode, and you talked about just burying the figure because the character died.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So somewhere in Northern California, in someone's backyard, there may be, maybe 1,000, maybe 3,000 years from now, there may be a figure that's unearthed, and it's the Flash, and they'll be like, what is this? Because it'll be a nuclear wasteland by then. The radiation will just be wearing off by then. But yeah, that was it was sort of like too, because I remember, it was like, I had like the last time that I was like, I played with my toys, and I made it a big epic. So I had like all my G.I. Joes and all my Star Wars, and it was like a huge battle, and I got all these firecrackers, and I blew everything up. And, but that was like sort of like symbolic of me like burying my childhood, even though I'm sitting here with a Voltron figure.
Well, no one killed Voltron, so that's acceptable.
Yeah. No, but look at the size of that thing.
Wow.
Look at the size of that thing.
And it was blurred out like it was like, not suitable for TV or something.
We can't get the copyright.
It's like really lewd toy that you have.
Diallo, who was writing The Flash in the early 2000s when it was Wally West?
It was Peter David, I think. I think it was Peter David.
I don't know if it was Peter David, but there was a great run of Wally.
It was
like 12. It was epic. It was great, and I loved it. And it was kind of like my first. I was working at Diamond Comics at the time. I think it was around 2005 or something. It was like I was reading that entire run. And the thing I loved about it was the writer, I forgot his name. He made the Rogues Gallery. He like rebuilt them and everything like that.
Jeff Johns.
There you go, Jeff Johns. That run,
the Rogues Gallery. That was amazing. Yeah.
And who is it? Is it Captain Cold? It's Captain Cold, right?
Yeah.
And I remember this one moment in that run where the whole city's like burning, and Captain Cold and the Flash, Wally West have to sort of work together. And the Flash Museum was on fire, and Captain Cold didn't give a shit until there was a statue of Barry Allen, and he put it out, and Wally West was like, he froze it to, keep it from burning and sort of save it. And Wally West was like, what? Why did you do that? You hate the Flash. He was like, no, that was Barry Allen. Like he deserves respect.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was so cool. That was so freaking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Flash, I used to read like the old school when I used to go to my friend's house and he had like a stack of like, Golden Age and Silver Age comics. And that's really my first introduction to comic books, really. And I used to read all these old school, even though it was like 1980 something, I didn't really realize that there were like current books out. So I was like reading these like 60s versions of the Flash and Green Lantern and Justice League. And and the book that I was thinking about was actually the run I was thinking about was Mark Waid in the 90s. It was like, he's the one that came up with like Speed Force and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, Jeff Johns' run was amazing. Like he like revitalized the Rogues Gallery. It was great.
Yeah.
I just I love the Flash. Still do. Shazam more though, but still.
Yeah. Well, we know your love for Shazam.
But yeah, and then to reiterate, so the Flash toy itself has the action legs.
Yes.
Anything else notable about the toy?
It doesn't come with.
Yeah,
any
that was it.
accessories.
It was just
Yeah.
like the legs. It was I think that's why like I had like a better story to tell with like the Flash, but I do think like the Green Lantern toy was like better because he had the lantern and my brother had Batman and Superman and I think he had the Batmobile also. So it's like I used to get to like play with toys still because my brother was getting them. He's much younger than me, so I got to extend that for a while longer. But yeah, but I really loved like I said that line is amazing. I didn't like the cartoon. It was because I really liked that. It was like Challenge of the Super Friends being rerun for a while, and I could see that there was like a different style. Like slightly different style of the animation. I just didn't like it. It was like a little different, but I did like the inclusion of like Darkseid and stuff. I liked those elements, bringing in the New Gods stuff. But I also didn't really like that cartoon.
And I have to tell you, I have to a point of contention. This is actually Mantis. It's not Parademon.
Oh.
It's Mantis. Mantis was more like a bat-like character with wings, and he was orange and red. This is Mantis. Mantis is the green-looking bug robot.
Interesting.
It looks like Mr. Miracle's face. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of does. I have Mr. Miracle as well, but
Yeah. When you say point of contention, are you personally upset that Corey?
No, I called it Parademon earlier.
Right.
I just want to point of clarification. Point of clarification.
Okay. You said contention, like you didn't pass the test. You said Parademon. I was going to wait. This is Mantis.
I'm out, guys. See ya.
Bye.
We're just adding to more of Zach's origin story.
Oh my god.
That's right. Keep it going.
But when you were asking before, you genuinely didn't know which character it was.
Who, me?
Yeah. I think you held it up and you're like, who is this?
Because I remember calling him Mantis, but I wasn't sure.
Okay.
But then I had to look up like the back of the card of the.
Copy.
What do the Parademons look like though? Because I was kind of thinking that was Mantis, but I was like, but the Parademons look.
They look like the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. A little bit.
Diallo's looking up that one. Zach, what's your pick?
My pick is based on the accessories mostly. I can't say it enough. I thought this toy line was really, really amazing. And I loved all the accessories that they came with. And like we said, not all of them did. This character in particular did. Like initially I was going to go with Dr. Fate because I love Dr. Fate. I love his look. Same with Firestorm. But the Green Arrow is actually going to be the figure that I choose as my favorite figure in the Superpowers toy line. Green Arrow, a.k.a. Oliver Queen. He was the, if you want to compare Marvel to DC, Marvel has Hawkeye, DC has Green Arrow. They're not the same in any way, shape, or form, but they're both archers and they have that thing going on there.
They actually are kind of the same.
Similar. Okay, well, there you go.
I
do love Hawkeye a lot as well, and they never made a Hawkeye figure back in the day, but they did make a Green Arrow figure. He came with, and I don't have these accessories anymore, unfortunately, but he came with a bow and 2 arrows, and the 2 arrows actually fit in the back of his backpack that he wears, which has the details of the arrows going around it as well. And then his action is a shooting action where you put the bow in one hand, and you could actually, like, not the rubber, but the plastic would stretch long enough for you to like connect the to his finger to shoot the arrow off. And it was just, it wasn't totally practical, but it was really cool looking. And he's so authentic. That was the other thing I loved about these. They were so authentic they look like they're ripped right out of the comic book. And he had, kind of a cool sculpt and shape to him. And that's why I like Green Arrow.
Offline, before we started recording, I had mentioned that 2 of my favorite like childhood like toy features. One was glow in the dark. It's always going to be glow in the dark. I love toys that glow in the dark. I also love clear plastic, like the Tron toys from back in the day. But my third favorite toy feature is when you can actually stick the accessory like somehow attached to the figure, whether it's a gun that goes into a holster or like that one, the arrows that actually go into his back. As a kid, I thought that was just the bee's knees.
Yeah, it was just different, so many times the G.I. Joe figures would come with something and you couldn't put it anywhere. They didn't have like a holster. Like they had a holster, but they had something already in the holster, that you couldn't remove.
You could do that for Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, couldn't you?
There were a couple. Shadow, There were a couple that
like
you could do
the swords
that with.
would go in.
But there were a few. Yeah, for the most part, it was just like, they've got these accessories on their bodies that you can't play with. At least with Green Arrow, you could use a couple of the arrows, and I thought that was really cool.
Except you cannot because you lost them. But
I did.
Listen, we can't win them all.
Well, he became a wrestler from Japan. That's what his backstory was.
That's fair.
He's the Great Muda?
I literally was going to say that.
Great minds think alike.
You guys don't know him. He's from Japan. You don't know him.
He's from Japan. Yeah. It's too inside. It's too inside.
I bet you can find remake deals online, like on eBay or something,
I'm
like
sure you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Because this figure is in relatively good shape, too.
No, I think, Diallo, I think you're right. I think that is actually a pretty big market.
Yeah.
Is people sell the accessories of things. I remember I'm never going to sell it, but I have one of the old 12-inch Boba Fett toys from the late, the original run, and someone was mentioning that the individual accessory pieces, like the Wookiee scalps and stuff, are worth more individually than the body, like the Boba Fett, because everyone's got the toy. Like Zach, no one has the freaking accessories anymore. So like selling the accessories on eBay, and I think people even like 3D print them now.
Yeah.
But the original accessories are what actually goes for buku bucks these days.
Yep.
And what would buku bucks be, just as in a ballpark? For anyone looking to steal
almost
your
3
accessories
figures
and sell them. No.
Yeah, I'd say 3 figures on
3 figures. Okay.
Yeah, unless it's like 3D printed and you're just like, I just want, and because like another market online on eBay is like, they'll print out new stickers for the toys, but they're not the originals, but they're a remake of the original, so you can put them on your toy.
I'm going to start getting into that because I have the Millennium Falcon that I want to redo, and then also the Sky Striker, and there's some some stickers, especially on the Millennium Falcon, that I just I have a friend, he did the whole thing. He like cleaned it all up and he just got all the pieces and everything. So I was like, it's been sitting in the closet for a long time. I'm like, I'm going to pull that out and make it respectable. So maybe we can make the jump to light speed. The Kessel Run, 12 parsecs.
All right, Corey. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's got to be delicate work. I mean, that's not...
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, there's all kinds of like cleaning and stuff. So, but like it actually, the way after you clean it, I mean, I've seen they look like new because like they were very like yellowed out, but like when after you do all the cleaning, it actually can like look like bright. Like when I remember when I first pulled the Millennium Falcon out, it was so bright and white and everything. So I just want to get all the little pieces, I think the little hover Jedi training thing, I think it's still in there, the little ball. I think that's in there, but then like the struts for the landing bay. I think there's like a piece missing, and kind of that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I actually discovered that market not for any of this, but it's like way back in like 2000. I started wanting to get like the Mego stuff again. And there was like websites where people were selling not like the originals, but like they're just like, reproductions of like stuff. So it's like you can get their costumes or their shoes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a market out there.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
imagine it's a lot easier now with 3D printing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, give us a before and after, because that seems very cool.
When I get started on it, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Dustin, any thoughts on so far? I mean, I know I still have to do mine, but any thoughts on the two that you've already seen that we've talked about?
Yes, I like the Flash and I like Green Arrow as choices. Corey, take us all the way home with a strong. 'Cause my understanding is that your pick is from a different series.
No. Well, Zach and mine are series 2.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Diallo's was series 1.
Got it.
I guess none of us picked anything from series 3. Although Zach, you mentioned the Holy Grail. That one, the Shazam one, is in series 3. That's probably why it's a Holy Grail.
Yeah, along with like a sun god guy.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
El Dorado? Was it El Dorado?
No, he was like kind of purple and orangish looking. Anyways.
So like I said, mine, I never owned like it new. I bought them just at a used toy store. But one of my favorite DC characters of all time, and literally my favorite character design of all time, and don't ask me why, because it's kind of ugly, but I loved my Red Tornado toy. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
But that's just a picture of it. Oh,
I don't have them anymore.
I don't have any of mine.
They've
all been lost to time.
I don't think that's ugly. I think that's beautiful.
I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's cool.
So for realsies, my favorite color is blue, and he's red. He's red and yellow, pretty
This
much.
guy's ugly.
Desan.
Oh yeah.
So it's so my guy, Red Tornado, you can squeeze his arms and his legs, it's like his waist will spin around to create the Red Tornado effect and everything. But he does come with like a cloth cape, kind of like how Batman came with his cape was cloth as well. So you get soft goods with it. But yeah, as a kid, here's the thing. I didn't even know anything about Red Tornado. I'd never read a Red Tornado comic in my entire life, but I saw him and I'm like, he's awesome looking. And then, throughout my entire life, I read X-Men, I read Punisher and everything. And in the back of my head, I always knew that Red Tornado was my favorite character design I'd ever seen. And like up until this day, I think he's a super cool character design. Now, if you said to me he looks stupid as hell, I'd be like, I'm not going to try to fight you on it, but I love him. I think he's hella cool. And I think it represents what I think as I've gotten older again, what I think I love about DC. It represents this boldness to it. The colors are bold. The design is bold with his, that cape with the flipped up, neck thing and everything. And there's just something that's just, you could show him to someone who only has tertiary knowledge of Marvel and DC, and I think that they would say, oh, that's a DC character. Like, he kind of embodies the bold design looks of DC characters. Diallo, do you think am I on to anything here? Or am I off base?
I think that's accurate. Like going back to like the why I don't think the DC movies worked is because I feel like Marvel embraced the genre and the costumes for the first, like they were really the first ones that fully embraced the costumes, and DC always felt like they were like apologizing for it.
Yeah.
Like they were, and that's why nothing really ever came. I mean, like how dark Man of Steel was. It's like that, I actually like that movie, but it's like, it didn't capture what Superman is, right? And so there's like a disconnect that you just kind of sense on a certain level, and that's why it doesn't resonate as much as it could, as opposed to the first Superman movie, right? When you see Red Tornado, I've always loved that design. Like I've always loved just looking at him. His his counterpart's kind of the Vision over in over Marvel. But yeah.
Good point. Yeah, you're right, because there's kind of with Marvel and DC, there's always a counterpart next to each other. And you're right. I guess the Vision would be that because the Red Tornado is an android.
Yeah. And most of DC's characters came first too.
Yep.
I used to have like a list when I was a kid of like I would write down all the characters that were the same. Quicksilver and the Flash,
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Marvel, DC. Yeah, the DC is always like bolder, more colorful on certain levels, more traditional.
And if they made a Red Tornado movie, he would not look like that
right,
at all.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I feel like the DC movies tended to fail. And, and as they kind of started figuring it out as they were moving forward, but it was like too late by then. It was like the DNA was all off, So,
Dustin, what do you think of Red Tornado?
Very cool visually. I think it might be my favorite. I don't know much about Red Tornado is he a villain?
No, he's a good guy.
He's a good guy?
Yeah. He's a hero.
Yeah.
He turns his bottom half turns into a tornado.
Into a tornado.
Yeah, it's good times.
That's pretty cool.
It's mine every morning.
I was gonna say he's a drink down at Cabo Wabo Cantina, and he'll turn your bottom half into a red tornado. So.
He is one of those ones. I kind of feel like similar to Vision, and I feel like he was one of those ones. He might have been introduced as a villain in the first. Because I think he was created by like a mad scientist, Professor Ivo. I think I could be making all this up. It's been years since I've actually thought about any of it. But then, but pretty quickly he, was a hero, and he's stalwart hero for all those years. Since.
Because of his love for a human woman.
I don't think they had that part. They did put that in the.
They're like, that's a bridge too far.
He just was always there. But. I do think I kind of feel like they did that a little bit in Young Justice. I think the cartoon, like the pretty recent cartoon. I think they might have done that, but I'm not sure. But yeah.
Zach, did you have thoughts on Red Tornado?
I mean, I owned him and I liked him. The playability was a little weak because the waist would always be super like floppy.
Loose,
yeah. So I ended up like kind of putting tape around their waist. Him and Samurai and the other characters that would have that similar action. That was one of my least favorite actions for the line, but I thought he looked really cool. With his like upside down smiley face on his chest and the arrow going down. I thought he was cool looking. I wish I still had him. I don't know what happened to him.
Gone with the wind.
And as I was looking for pictures of him on eBay, it looks like he's like in packages like $200 or something. So I'm like, well, I'll never own that one.
It's insane. It's insane. And it's cool that Todd McFarlane is making like reissuing these with very similar sculpts. And I had a bunch of figures some of them were kind of lame. There was one called Orion, and he had like a weird helmet.
He's
Darkseid's.
He's Darkseid's other son, I think.
Yeah, his figure though was like, it was so bulky to have that giant thing on his head, and it didn't. All his head did was spin around. There wasn't anything on it just spun around. That was his action.
Because he doesn't really have. It's funny because he doesn't have an action like. What is his head? His head has nothing to do with who he is, like as a character. So they just threw something in there. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
yeah. I mean, this character Golden Pharaoh was a Holy Grail figure.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, he was really hard to get and very cool looking. Again, I loved how many of these figures came out at a time when I don't feel like they were all that popular because this is. G.I. Joe is super popular. Transformers obviously celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. So I'm just glad they still exist, and I'm glad I have a collection of them. And Diallo, you can have my Flash figure. I'll give it to you.
I will take that.
I'll give it to you, yeah. Next time I see you, I'll give you my Flash
back
figure.
Through time and grab it.
Whoa. Do you think he's earned that after this episode?
Yeah, he's like, this is my penance.
No, I mean, because I feel like you're fulfilling the exact thing that Diallo said about you early on, which is that you're just trying to, like, you don't have to give it to him.
You don't have to give it to him. You don't have to give it to him.
Oh, I know.
That can be part of your healing, to not give it.
I know, but I like to give. So.
Part of your healing could be withholding love.
Yeah, well, yes. David Ullman's going, thank you guys for getting to my point, and thank you, Zach, for your therapy session.
Yes. Dude, you had the Dr. Fate one, right? Or no?
I do have Dr. Fate.
I was like, I'll take that one.
No. I was just saying, like, I loved a lot, like, when we had to pick what our favorite, like, figures were, like, I liked so many of them. It was like, Dr. Fate is just like a cool character. And I was surprising that they actually made, I think that was one of the things about that line that was like interesting, was because, traditionally it was just like the Super Friends, right? So you had like that sort of like iconic 7 or 8, however many. But with superpowers, you had like all these characters that were like back in the deep roster of DC, and for a lot of people, it was the first time they were even seeing a lot of these. So
yeah, he was going to be my go-to. He was going to be my go-to pick over Green Arrow, but I chose Green Arrow for the accessories. But when that Black Adam movie came out and Dr. Fate was in it, it was such a disappointment.
Yeah, I was so disappointed.
Such a lame. This iconic costume. You're talking about the how DC did that. X-Men did that in those X-Men movies when they come out with the drab outfits, and you're like, wait, what is this? This is an X-Men. It reminded me of the Incredible Hulk when they would do the TV specials, the TV movies with Daredevil comes out black. And Thor, and you're like, those aren't that's not Daredevil and Thor, Anyways, this is iconic. He's such a cool character, and his vibe was cool, like the whole font, and the font on the blister packs was neat. And I don't know. I'm glad David brought this to the table, because I've been wanting to have an excuse to pull out my toys for the longest time.
What is he a doctor of?
Fate.
He's a doctor of fate. His doctorate in fate.
He's a doctor of fate. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we should at some point do the counterpart to this and do the Marvel toys, at some point. So hopefully
Secret Wars,
someone
I have those
will suggest that to us. Yes.
Yeah, and everyone listening, look, you are in charge of this show. So you suggest a topic, we will discuss it, just like David, just like all the people that we've covered so far. And that's what I love about 80s Kids Unite. It reminds us of some of those things that we might have forgotten about and unlocks childhood trauma.
just to summarize here. So Zach, you have a ton of them. Corey, you have none of them. Diallo, do you have any?
No, I don't have any. I had those two. I buried one. I don't even know where the Green Lantern is. And a lot of the toys that I had just were gone, because I was from that generation where you were forced to throw stuff away, and anything I tried to save, it was like a battle for years, and I lost that because I was always away at college or something. So
you're not playing with it, so why do you even have it? I'm like,
yeah. But I've reclaimed some, I've gotten the Millennium Falcon and the Sky Striker. Those were like two of my favorite all-time toys ever. So and then I get some of the newer figures of things now. That remind me. I've been get the Migos when they come around, because that reminds me of like my heyday of collecting stuff right before Star Wars came out. But I don't have any of the originals from that line.
I have one. It's a Green Goblin figure. It's the Pocket Heroes. Those were the first 3 3/4 figures to come out.
Dude, I was just thinking. I literally was just thinking. I had like DC versions of those.
Well, they did. They did DC. Yeah. They did DC, Marvel, and then there was a couple other brands that they also had the rights to at the time. And but the Pocket Heroes were famous for the action poses of many of the figures
sitting or something, weren't they?
Well, they had Batman and Robin had their hands in interesting places. So it was just Batman and Superman, I believe. By the way, Casey Kasem did the voice of Robin on the Superpowers cartoon.
Yeah.
Or Super Friends.
Oh, so Pocket Heroes was also Mego, right?
Yeah, so Mego started getting into, I think they were the first to do 3 3/4 figures, because I believe those came out in the late 70s.
79,
late
I
70s,
just pulled it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember
because
getting,
G.I. Joe hadn't come out until much later.
I remember getting
They
a
also
couple of those.
They also did ones for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, The Greatest American Hero, and everyone's favorite. As a kid, you want toys of this, The Love Boat.
I had those, and they also did MASH as well. Wow. They did MASH. I had the MASH figures. I had the Love Boat figures.
Got to get that.
They did Chips. Chips. They did Chips. Eventually, or Ertl might have come out with Chips, but I believe Mego had Chips as well.
Chips and Dukes of Hazzard, I think.
Yeah, and then Did they have? They made the car too.
They had a Starsky and Hutch, didn't they? I feel like they.
Yeah, they did that, and they Magnum PI and Star. Oh my gosh, all those Hardcastle and McCormick.
They had all of that. All of that they had.
Yeah. Super.
I got all of them.
Super powers.
Well, in your parents' defense, Zach, I think that moving 7 times, you do got to scale down. You can't have all your toys coming with you every time. I mean,
fair.
It's just kind of take up space. No, I think it's terrible. I'm trying to justify it, but it's.
I know I did.
It's terrible that you only have 85% of your toy collection.
Yeah, I marvel at that every time. Like you were just pulling all of those out now, and I was like, it's like you have a TARDIS, and it's like you have like you just like keep them in like a pocket dimension, and you just like pull these. I'm like, where did these come from?
Right? I could compartmentalize. I could really do a good job of compartmentalizing.
Yeah, you don't actually. There's no physical. The physics of your space doesn't make any sense. You don't have any place for these toys to live.
I'm Dr. Toy. I'm Dr. Toy.
Yes, Dr. Toy. Well, everybody, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to be a patron and suggest a topic, as Corey mentioned, go to patreon.com/$2 late fee or patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. Sign up at any level, and you can suggest a topic. We'll talk about it. And yeah, guys, well, good work. This is episode 10, so this is wow. This is an achievement. We're in double digits.
Yep,
happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to all y'all who celebrate, and for those that don't, happy day.
Yeah, like people who don't celebrate gratitude or...
Yeah,
no. If you've never said thank you...
Canada, we got a lot of Canadian listeners.
Oh,
Germany,
you're being
Europe.
Yeah,
I'm being
diplomatic and regional.
Yeah.
Wait, America. Everyone loves American holidays. America first.
The UK.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm grateful for you guys, for all you Americans.
For you guys.
America started Christmas.
Who understand what we're talking about. If you're confused on what Thanksgiving is, whenever you celebrate Thanksgiving,
America started Valentine's Day.
America started.
America created Halloween.
America created the 4th of July.
The 4th of July did not exist until we fought for putting it on the calendar. It used to go July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, then 5th. And
yes,
freedom
Yep.
brought that to the table.
Yep.
It was a hard-fought victory, but we won.
Well.
Yeah.
It's all so depressing. Anyway, guys, happy Thanksgiving.
Hey,
happy Thanksgiving.
Thankful for you guys. How about that?
I'm thankful for you guys too.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
our
thankful
friendship.
for you guys
ups and downs and all.
We went through some stuff in the last 24 hours.
It's been what you know what we're stronger for.
It was the show almost ended. I mean,
you're welcome for the entertainment, everybody. You're welcome for the entertainment.
It was just so funny because as soon as you commented yesterday, I was like, in my head, I was like, Zach didn't read that. He didn't. I was like, he didn't watch that.
It happens. It's a cool chocolate milk ad.
Dustin, thank you for show running.
or emceeing, whatever, because the show running lives within all of us. You know what I mean?
It does.
Like we all.
You've got the touch.
I'm so.
Hey,
drunk.
we're getting ready. Next month is December. And we are in the midst of figuring out something special for that. So stay tuned for December's topic. And
right, December could potentially be like a million guests, right?
Yeah, we might go big and live. We might. We're trying to figure that out, y'all. So stay tuned. Stay tuned to all our social medias. Patrons will hear about it first. And over on our Patreons, we've got all sorts of great stuff going on. So check us out. Support the shows. Support us. Subscribe, like, etc., all that good stuff.
I liked it better when Diallo said it.
Oh, well, fine. Merry Christmas,
Oh, Jesus
everyone.
Christ. It's Christmas already.
Okay, sorry.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Diwali. That happened already. America created that also.
80s Kids Unite is brought to you by Hungry Hungry Hippos, the loudest tabletop game in history. And by Nickelback, Zach's favorite band. If you'd like to suggest topics for this show, go to the Patreon of either $2 late fee or Podcasting After Dark, or both. All links are in the show notes. We love you.